What's the most mind-blowing yet simple fact? Story 1. In World War II, a Hungarian mathematician named Abraham Wald developed a counterintuitive method for armor plate placement while studying damaged aircraft. He observed planes returning home from sorties with large holes in them and was tasked with figuring out where to put armor plates. His crucial insight was to not put armor plates where the holes were. The holes in the aircraft that returned represented damage that did not impact the ability of the planes to return home. In other words, he made the critical observation of the bias in the data he was observing. He was only looking at planes that survived. With this knowledge, he instructed armor to be placed in areas that were not damaged. Because if these areas were hit, there would be no damage in that component in the planes that returned home. Story 2. 100 years from now, you probably will not exist. Imagine being nothing. There might be awesome discoveries after you are dead. Maybe aliens will land here. Maybe we find life on another planet. Holographic movies. Flying cars is the norm. Round the world trip might take only a few minutes, but want to experience any one of those. You are just a memory, if you are lucky. So how much of the diverse nature have you seen till now on the planet? If you are stressed about money and work, why is it? All the stress you have now won't be worth it 60 years from now. Story 3. There's no reason why the alphabet is in that specific order. The Latin alphabet and its ordering are derived from the Greek alphabet, which is derived from the Canaanite and Hebrew alphabet. The Hebrew system is a Semitic version of a component in the Egyptian hieroglyph system that was used to write foreign names. In the Egyptian and Hebrew system, the letters are named by actual words that begin with the sound that the letter represents. Originally, the letters were also shaped as hieroglyphs, representing those word names. For instance, the first Hebrew letter, Aleph, means ox, and its original shape was an ox's head. Over the years, the face lost its features and in the Latin version got turned upside down to form what is now the letter A. The actual reason for the ordering is not known, but it is believed that the letter names were part of some long sentence that kept the ordering and was used as a mnemonic for the order. Story 4. What freaks me out is timing. Picking a quarter or tying your shoe or smoking a cigarette can and will change your life forever. Example. Before leaving the house, your great-grandfather tied his shoe. Then he got in his car and drove away. He drives through an intersection. The light is green. As soon as he gets to the middle of the intersection, a drunk driver crashes into him, putting him into the hospital. While in the hospital, your great-grandfather meets a nurse who he falls in love with and marries. 2 years later, your grandmother is born. 27 years after that, your father is born. 34 years later, you are born. 21 years later, you're off to your first casino. Before sitting at your first slot machine, you smoke a cigarette. You put $20 in the machine and hit spin. Jackpot. Congratulations, you're a millionaire. All because your great-grandfather stopped to tie his shoes. If he was wearing sandals or didn't tie his shoes that night, he'd never meet his future wife, the nurse, never would have had your grandmother as his daughter, nor your father as his grandson, nor you as a great-grandchild. Thanks for tying your shoes, great-grandpas. Story 5. I remember being in first grade. I assumed everybody had an individual first name, so there would be only one John in the whole world. I had just never met two people with the same name. One day, the teacher came in to tell us we were going to have a guest student named Gabby. Hell yeah, I was. My Aunt Gabby is going to come to my school. Imagine my surprise the next day when some imposter comes in trying to say she has the same name as my aunt. Story 6. Malaria has ended the lives of more people than anything else, ever. Along those lines, mosquitoes are the deadliest animal in the world. Mosquitoes are also widely believed to be a net negative to all ecosystems. If mosquitoes were removed from any ecosystem, it would benefit from their disappearance. To my knowledge, they are unique in this aspect as a naturally occurring species. In short, mosquitoes are a parasite on the entire world. Edits. Yes, humans are fairly negative. However, for every ecosystem we destroy, we create more. The genetic diversity is somewhat lost, but a host of species actively benefit from our existence. Also, not all species of mosquitoes fall into this category. Many are very beneficial. However, a few select species are believed to be net negative. Story 7. What a factorial is. When No Child Left Behind became a thing, I was one of the first generations to have to put up with it, and apparently we never covered factorials. It wasn't until I was in Calc 2 doing some implicit differentiation bullshit question that I came across a factorial. I stared at the board for a solid minute, with this look of confusion, like we suddenly started using punctuation in a math class. Like that 4 is an exclamative number or something. It's boldly making a statement about this problem. Ironically, I was the only child left behind in that lecture. Story 8. The time the sun's light takes to get to us. It's very logical, but I had never thought of it. Blow your mind even more. If the sun were to suddenly vanish, which it likely won't, but just for a fun thought experiment, the Earth and all other system orbits will continue to orbit the spot that the sun was until the lack of light reaches it roughly 8 minutes later. Earth won't start flying straight through space until everything goes dark. This space is such a crazy thing. I wish I could better answer some of the questions my little tidbit brought up. So, the quick and dirty gravity propagates at the speed of light from the point of distortion. Gravity is not an instantaneous field or force, at least according to Einstein's general theory. And yes, this is kind of related to the gravity wave situation that made big news the last few weeks. Story 9. Roy Orbison was not blind. He always wore those big, dark glasses looking slightly off center. He never moved around much. Anyway, I did my research, and sure enough, he could indeed see, although he did have poor eyesight. Before a concert, he forgot his regular prescription glasses on the airplane and only had his prescription sunglasses with him. So he performed with his sunglasses on that night, and the next day the newspaper completely focused on his sunglasses. He knew that it might be a good way to get an image that could last. Also, he enjoyed driving motorcycles and cars, which would be a bloody stupid thing for a blind person to do. Story 10. Leonardo da Vinci invented scissors. I was in high school and saw this in a car commercial. I always thought da Vinci was cool, but I was really only familiar with his painting and his crazy, ahead of his time, predicting the future inventions that didn't totally work. Learning he modified shears ever so slightly and increased their efficiency and usefulness so much that they haven't been improved upon since opened a whole new level of respect for that hairy Italian nutjob. Story 11. If it were possible and you were to try and picture Graham's number, it would collapse your head into a black hole. Stuff like this always amazes me. There's a whole Wikipedia page on really large numbers such as Graham's number, but it's surely out of date by now, and they'll keep creating new functions, such as tree and computer programs, such as the one that came up with Loader's number, that are proving even larger ones all the time. Tree 3, for example, is so much bigger than Graham's number that there's no logical way to describe it. If you took Graham's number to the Graham's number power as many times as there are atoms in the universe, then the resulting number wouldn't come close to tree 3. And there are functions for numbers that are much, much larger than even tree 3. I really recommend ridiculously huge numbers on YouTube. This is a long playlist, and it sometimes is hard to follow, but you can really get a sense for the orders of magnitude involved with some of them. Story 12. Some people do not have the ability to visualize things in their mind. Aphantasia is essentially mind blindness, so they cannot draw up a mental image. I had read about it here on Reddit and explained it to my wife, and that day we found out she had it. It shifted our world significantly because she realized that she has gone her whole life with this. Our understanding of memories are two totally different things because I can visualize them and she cannot. When I describe an idea for a project, I have to draw it out for her to be able to understand it. There is definitely a wide spectrum of people's ability to visualize things in the mind, but the condition known as aphantasia is more like a description of people who are low on this spectrum. There might be sets of genes that play a role in this or not. None have been identified. So whether or not someone has aphantasia is arbitrary, subjective, and trivial. I only say this because every time someone talks about aphantasia on Reddit, 100 people come out of the woodwork to claim that they've finally found out what makes them different from everyone else. I tend to think none of these people are just confused about what the rest of us mean by visual imagery. Some people have vivid imaginations, some people have average imagination, and some people have poor imagination. I am sure the latter group excels at some other facet of sensation and perception elsewhere in the brain. It's not a contest. Story 13. Our inability to experience non existence, just like before birth. Simply saying there will always be a feeling of existence, like there has always been. Not once do you remember being unconscious for long periods of time. When you go to sleep very tired and wake up the next morning, you won't be like, man, that was a long, boring 8 hours. There must be consciousness to experience anything at all, and to experience time itself. And another one, though not recent. People are programmed to be a specific way. Sure, genes and DNA have a little to do with it all, but what you experience in the first 12 years of life will dictate the path you will ultimately take in life. The understanding of this grants you the ability to be empathetic towards people that might not be very friendly. Compassion, basically. Third one, everything is interconnected. Maybe not directly, but nothing is separated from everything. Everything has a why. An insignificant 10-second event that you experienced 20 years ago might have completely changed the path you will take in life. And I'm not talking about a big event, even. Literally, just a time when you made a little joke with the cashier and they laughed. And it won't only affect your own existence, it affects all of humanity beyond your very ability to comprehend it. Every thought, every action, every event of the past and the present and the future is working in harmony. There is this infinite ripple effect in everything. One must have an open mind. One must be willing to challenge their own beliefs and opinions. But how can we make the entire human race capable of doing that? Will there be a period in time when everybody knows literally everything and there's no questions to ask about anything anymore? How much are we able to know? And a bunch more, but this is already long enough. Story 14, there's something called cloud seeding, which puts chemicals in the sky and it boosts the possibility of rain or snow for this past season. Multiple states have had new records for most rainy or snowy seasons, and it's all because of cloud seeding. Did you just learn about Operation Popeye America carried out in Vietnam in the 1960s to flood away the roads, supply lines, etc.? You know the part in Forrest Gump when he says, it rained a lot, then goes through all the different kinds of rain in Vietnam. Forrest and Bubba slept back to back to keep their heads out of the rain or mud. That was us cloud seeding. Story 15. The inscription on the One Ring from Lord of the Rings is not actually Elvish, which quite a few people mistake it to be, but an entirely different language that Tolkien created called the Black Speech of Mordor, or Orcish. Tolkien has stated that he came up with the Black Speech by thinking of the most horrible things in his life. In particular, his experiences from World War I, which is why, when you hear the Black Speech, such as when Sauron speaks it in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, it sounds like a dialect sent straight from hell. He grew to be disgusted by the language he created so much that when a fan sent him a wine goblet with the One Ring's inscription on it as a gift, he used it as an ashtray. Story 16, Senator Daniel Inouye literally lived out every overdone action movie trope. Inouye was promoted to sergeant within his first year, and he was assigned as a platoon sergeant. He served in Italy in 1944 during the Rome-Arno campaign before his regiment was transferred to the Vosges Mountains region of France, where he spent 2 weeks in the battle to relieve the lost battalion, a battalion of the 141st Infantry Regiment that was surrounded by German forces. He was promoted to second lieutenant for his actions there. At one point, while he was leading an attack, a shot struck him in the chest directly above his heart, but the bullet was stopped by the $2 silver he happened to have stacked in his shirt pocket. He continued to carry the coins throughout the war in his shirt pocket as good luck charms, until he lost them shortly before the battle, in which he lost his arm. Story 17, cicadas live underground for several years and emerge only to reproduce. The number of years they take to come above ground is mostly a prime number. Each species has its own prime number of years they stay underground. The reason to be a prime number is that it drastically reduces the chance of two different species meeting above ground in the same year and crossbreeding, weakening the genes of both species. As several people pointed out, crossbreeding might be actually good for evolution in the long run. However, each species is already refining their genes for ages. If they crossbreed, they have to start over the whole process. Another reason for the weird reproduction cycle is avoiding predators and competition among species, according to some replies. Story 18, North American area codes were originally assigned based on population size and the ease of dialing on a rotary phone. 212 went to New York. Fastest dial time, possible for the most phoned area. 312 for Chicago. Alaska got 907. Mind you, this was when only 1 or 0 could be the middle digit in an area code. If you add up your area code, with 0 being 10, you get a numerical ranking of your city and state's relative importance, if you will. This is no longer true as any three numbers can be used for an area code, so these original area codes like rotary phones are a relic of the past. Story 19. In World War II, an American airman by the name of Alan McGee survived a free fall from 22,000 feet without a parachute and became a prisoner of war for 2 years. In 1943, he was in a B-17 making a bombing run over France when the plane's wing was shot off by German fighters. As the plane entered a spin, he leapt out without a parachute and immediately lost consciousness from the altitude. After falling 4 miles, he crashed through the glass ceiling of the Saint Nazaire railroad station and onto the floor below, where he was captured as a prisoner of war. He suffered almost 30 shrapnel wounds, several broken bones, severe damage to his nose, eyes, lungs, kidneys, and his right arm was nearly severed off. His captors treated him back to health. He was liberated and awarded an Air Medal and a Purple Heart. Story 20. Eels actually have two jaws, the first being like a normal jaw, the second being hidden in their throat. The secondary jaw lunges forward when the eel bites down on prey, bites down on the piece within the mouth, and bites a chunk out of it, pulling it down the throat. Think about the alien in the movie Alien. The secondary mini mouth they use is based on an eel's anatomy. Story 20. The fact that recently a group of scientists went to investigate a forest of trees that were able to live for thousands of years on their own and ended up finding traces of massive radiation in the very early rings of the trunks. All of them had this in the same spots. Around the same time, judging by the average age of the trees and the rings the radiation was located in, there was a battle involving the Crusaders, Deus Vult, by the way, and one of the soldiers' uncovered diaries had described seeing the image of the cross burning like fire in the sky, which had given them extra morale, and then they won the battle. So, using logic, you can guess that this cross in the sky was what caused the radiation. And I can hear you thinking, how in the fuck? Well, I can proudly tell you that literally no one knows. Story 22, the most successful sniper in the history of Western civilization was likely Simo Häyhä of Finland. During the Winter War of 1939-1940, when the Russians invaded, Häyhä set himself up in a tree. In below freezing temperatures, -4 Fahrenheit to -40 Fahrenheit, armed with only two weapons, possibly a M2830 rifle and a Suomi KP-31 submachine gun, and then he started taking out Russians. Lots and lots of Russians. Just learned that on one particular day, Häyhä recorded 25 kills. When the Russians realized that this one sniper was picking them off, they set counter snipers to kill him. Häyhä ended them all. So the Russians sent artillery strikes, and those didn't work either. After taking an average of 5 Russians a day for over 3 months, Häyhä was finally stopped when a Russian soldier that he shot and took out at the same time managed to get off a shot with an explosive bullet that struck him in the jaw. At the end of his career, Häyhä had 505 confirmed kills and is estimated to have at least 300 more soldiers. Oh, and that explosive bullet didn't actually end him. Häyhä survived and later became a successful dog breeder and moose hunter. Story 23. No one ant knows how an ant colony works, yet an ant colony emerges from many ants. Each single ant is following its basic impulses and reflexes based on its immediate surroundings, and yet the colony can react to intruders, build more tunnels, and gather food as if it were one large entity. It's a commonly known fact, but I think it's pretty mind-boggling when you think about it. What's even more mind-boggling is if you use this to think about your brain. Your neurons are the ants, and your brain is the ant colony. Each neuron can receive electrical input from any number of other neurons firing. If the amount of input crosses a threshold unique to each neuron, it itself fires. This electrical impulse then travels to any number of other neurons, and the same process occurs in each of them. This is how your brain works. From this simple process emerges complex thought. You are not the neurons in your brain, you are the extremely complex colony of neurons that emerges. Each neuron is utterly meaningless, but from this meaninglessness forms meaning. All the amazing things your brain can do. Story 24, I have another one. It's not exactly mind-boggling, but it's still really interesting. I love big cats. The term panther is traditionally thought to refer to black jaguars, or more traditionally, black leopards. Bagheera from The Jungle Book is probably the best-known black panther. However, the term panther can be used to refer to any of the 5 species of cat in the genus Panthera. The lion, tiger, leopard, snow leopard, and jaguar are all panthers in this. The 5 species are also commonly called big cats, an informal classification which also includes cheetahs and cougars in popular vernacular. Clouded leopards are occasionally grouped in here as well. Panther, as a colloquial term, can also refer to cougars, the large tawny cat of North and South America. Panther is a term most commonly associated with melanism. Melanism refers to an abundance of pigmentation and is the opposite of albinism. Classic examples of melanism include The black leopard and black jaguar. There have been very few reports of black lions or black tigers, but as far as I know, they've never been confirmed. What have been confirmed are pseudo-melanistic tigers, which have a more heavily striped coat. Conversely, the golden tabby tiger has been observed. As the name suggests, it has no dark stripes. Story 25. We don't currently know whether we actually love our special others, or just the images, ideas, projections of them that we have created in our minds. The only universe we know is the one we experience through a human lens, which may be distorting it immensely. The special thing we think humans have is simply a sensory or perception decoder that got a tad too powerful. Before humans could become even cooler, we slowed down our natural evolution. We could not function without electricity. Thomas Edison used to electrocute neighborhood dogs with alternating current to prove that direct current was better. Almost none of us will amount to anything meaningful in our lives. It is entirely possible that we think in different ways about the same things. We just assume we're all using the same machinery. Babies have little to no concept of self. That may just be a product of our society. Written dialogue skips all of the ums, UHS, you know. If you ever had to transcribe some oral conversation, you'll notice that we talk in such garbles that it becomes easy to see that our brains are paying attention to more things than the words that are coming out of someone's mouth. We are a organized organic compounds on a pile of hardened debris that is being flung through space while revolving around a heat source, which is being flung around a supermassive black hole that is being flung through the fabric of time and space that is so vast that we could not even imagine how large it is. And some people think it was all built for us.